And we conclude tonight with two actors here in San Francisco, and this is in honor of the San Francisco Film Festival. We've invited Melissa Thompson Esaia and Chris Meehan, both actors in different ways. I think I'm going to let you both. You're more of a Melissa. You're more of a classically trained Shakespearean actress or actor, and you've worked in the Bay Area.
Right.
And Chris, you are with the Meehan brothers. You're a native San Franciscan, and you do stage work and commercials. And you both have managed to be professional actors here in San Francisco, and that's why I wanted both of you on the program. Let's start with you, Chris.
Sure.
So, are you the classic struggling actor that has to wait on tables and sell scripts to various customers, or have you gone another round?
You know, I don't wait, but I did cater. I've been a house painter forever and a high school teacher, but yeah, I also had to have a job where I could split and go to an audition. And I've been fortunate enough the last 2 or 3 years to get some pretty good commercial work, and that leads to other work, and so that's been kind of 50-50 now.
Do you look at yourself as an actor?
Yes, absolutely.
And that what you do to survive is what you do to survive, but that's how you see that as your profession?
Absolutely. That's what I want to do with my life. So I've come to the decision that I may not own a home, but I'm going to rent and do what I love. You know, I've just kind of come to that term where I was kind of under pressure to make a lot of money and have a house and a family, and I would love to have that, but there's nothing like acting. Also, I would like to be a better actor. I'm always struggling to kind of get better.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a training that you both took. How about you, Melissa? You also have to survive, but do you see yourself as a professional actress?
Absolutely. I wouldn't call myself a struggling actor in the traditional sense. I have a day job that has afforded me. I do have a home and a family. However, I'm not able to just jump to go to an audition during the day or audition for equity theater companies who rehearse for 3 weeks during the day. So that is my struggle.
And what is the status of the Bay Area right now? There seems to be, I mean, this film festival show is highlighting 50 years of filmmaking in the Bay Area. It's got a great tradition, so on, some key players here. But is it still the rule that if you are going to be, do you have to be in Los Angeles, Chicago, or New York to make it? And why? And there's a lot of theaters here. Can you do what you want to do here in the Bay Area?
There's a ceiling as far as TV and film. You're going to get day player roles. You might even get a national commercial. I know Edelman Production in Marin does a lot of HGTV and the History Channel. But primarily, if you're going to have a career, I think it's LA or New York.
Why is that?
I think there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of other things there, and that's where they're casting. That's where things are being pitched. And they really don't come up here looking for new talent because they have tons down there.
But with all the creativity, especially like in Marin, with Lucas having such a powerful impact and Coppola, why? There seemed to be a time there where we were beginning to make it. We had, as I understand it, enough props, enough of the facilities they need when they come to town to do work in a studio, not the landscape and shots outside. And I understood that was one of the greatest problems, just finding props to do. And so we were building that up, and it appeared that we were getting there. It seems though now there's about only one single feature film filmed here. Why? It's with all the talent.
I honestly can't really speak to that because my focus has not been
You're a stage actor.
Film and television. So that might be more
well,
your
I would say tax incentives. I mean, Canada knew, they said, San Francisco saw a big company coming to town. This is my interpretation of it. They said, well, this is a good, money bag. Well, Canada and Vancouver, if you want to shoot a movie in San Francisco, you go to Vancouver because you get rebates by the city, by the province, and by the federal government. In Charlotte, I did something in Atlanta, and I worked with a company from Charlotte. They're shooting 7 movies in Charlotte. Wow. And they're probably casting that in New York and LA and maybe some down south.
But they cast for those productions outside of Charlotte?
In fact, they cast for the Atlanta commercial in San Francisco. The great thing about San Francisco is that it is a secondary market, so as an actor, you can make some dough. But you're not going to get the talent in Sacramento, or it's really San Francisco and Chicago, probably a primary market, but there's little cultural hubs where you're going to have a little bit more sophistication or culture, and that's going to just have your pool's going to be better than another market.
So, but of course, in post-production or in digital effects and so on, we are becoming probably one of the world's centers.
Yes.
So in that way, we do contribute, and that's becoming such a major part of films. But in stage, when you go to the theater directory online for the Bay Area, there must be 150 theaters, houses, playhouses. The quality, how do you rate the quality, not in the numbers, but of the best houses, even Magic or in your area in Sonoma or Marin? Are they just amateur playhouses that are or are you seeing the kind of quality you would attribute to New York? Probably New York, not necessarily Los Angeles in stage.
Yeah, like you say, there are hundreds of theater companies in the Bay Area. However, there's just a handful of the large houses, the equity houses, and those are doing the caliber of work that you would see, say in New York.
With local actors?
Absolutely.
Not the shows that come in?
No, I'm talking San Francisco Bay Area actors. And if you look outside the Bay Area and outside of San Francisco proper, and the smaller theater companies in San Francisco, you're seeing that caliber of work as well, but large audiences are not seeing the work because these smaller theater companies don't have the money to advertise. They're not able to market their shows. But I think that the talent is there, the love of the work is there. But unfortunately for actors, it's difficult because the cost of living is so high here that we can't make a living working in the smaller houses.
Right. Now, both of you come together because of Jim Jarrett, who will be on the program next week. And we had him here when he was just starting, before he even had the school. And he was doing Sandy down at the Magic. And I'd be curious to get both of your points of view on how it affected you. Now, for the viewer's sake, or even my sake, why don't we remind, listen, you and I were talking about, the play Sandy is an attempt to show some of the principles of the Meisner method. And he did train some very important actors. Not like he was out in left field, right?
Right.
Correct.
Diane Keaton and more.
James Caan, Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall.
Yeah.
Some of the top actors, and they all have one thing. I remember when I saw the list, they all had a certain intensity. It's different than your average actor. So what did it do to you, and why did you decide to do it, and what's it done to you?
Wow. Well, it's one thing to always get better. I'm not there where I want to be, but just to act truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And very simple stuff I found with Meisner technique and with Jim Jarrett is you get rid of the gobbledygook and the psychobabble, and they're very simple things. But Jim talks about talent, and talent is the ability to have an imagination and go after it and just put it out there. I mean, I think any good actor, no matter what school, is just to have the guts to put it out there. But I think specifically with Jim is they're very simple steps that aren't so simple to accomplish. But for instance, a simple, strong choice. Don't start thinking about everything. The first thing is to act before you think, which is the opposite in the world. But don't go from the guts, less from the head. I mean, we're always going to be thinking. But Jim is, what's your instinct? What do you want to do? And
for the character in a certain situation.
Right, and there's really, Jim will always say the character is you. You're not, you do research, and character is jewelry. It's really how Arthur responds to this, how I respond to this, because that's the only experience I have in life. So when Sandy Meisner says it takes 20 years to be a good actor, a great actor, and that's if you work hard, it's because you have 20 more years of life experience. A 19-year-old doesn't know maybe one heartbreak, but by the time you're 38, you've had 4, and all 4 were different. So now you have a different reference on how your heart's broken, and so it's specific.
Now, you and from your point of view, having been trained classically, I don't know if that means that you were more concerned with gesture and the exterior behavior, and not any internal information. like Laurence Olivier, we talked about that. He just despises method actors. He could be thinking about his last trip while he's on stage. He doesn't have to be emotionally involved the way this method it dictates. Did you come from that? Did you start there?
Absolutely. My training is primarily classical, more specifically Shakespeare. So it is typically very presentational and very actory. And this technique, the Meisner technique, rid me of that quick. And so at first, I thought, okay, well, this is going to be hard for me to reconcile. And I've had the opportunity to work in a Shakespeare play, having been trained in this technique.
Now
and
that
so
play was?
The Taming of the Shrew.
And you played?
I played Kate.
And can you give me one example, one scene where you would have done it one way in your classical training, and how this impacted the way you addressed a certain situation?
Sure. I probably couldn't give you a specific scene.
Or in general.
But just in the language, you know, with the Meisner technique, one of the sort of mottos is, words mean nothing. Like Chris said, an ounce of behavior is worth a pound of words. But in Shakespeare, the language is all important. You know, there's a rhythm to it. Each word is chosen for a very specific reason. So, say in the final speech, the very famous Kate speech, "Fie, unknit that threatening, unkind brow," you know, it's often done, it's very beautiful, the language is gorgeous, but what I've learned with the Meisner technique is to find what inside of me would get me to a point where I would be able to say that with full, we call them doings, where I'm really doing something to the person that I'm speaking to. I'm not just saying pretty words and wearing a beautiful costume.
Do you think then, when you reevaluate Shakespeare, that he then understood and wanted his plays to be more than just wonderful poetry on stage?
Oh,
These were dramas.
Yes.
And the Meisner, it works. The Meisner concept would work then.
Absolutely. It absolutely works.
It's intense, though, isn't it? Now, you do comedy.
Yeah, and it's helped me tremendously.
Well, I'm kind of intrigued now from your point of view. We've talked about from Melissa's point of view now. How does comedy? It seemed to me that he was so intensely. He was a character. He was not a very funny guy, right? He was not a comedian.
Right.
Pretty grumpy guy and very insistent and very much of a disciplinarian. So how do you take that into comedy?
It's wonderful for writing because the exercises in class are all we just improv. It's not improv as in the stand-up, but we it's not improv. It's
improvisation.
Thank you. And so you're writing and moving. I'm going off your behavior. I'm like, you're listening to me. Yes, you're nodding your head. You would repeat, and then we're in something. Well, if you walk in and you're pissed, and I just had a baby, and we get into this, who knows where that's going to go? So on stage, I'm the youngest of 8 kids. No one ever listened to me. So when I'm on stage with my brothers, they don't listen. But if I listen to what they're saying on a comedy stage, that can be funny. Well, they just don't listen to me, so I react to what they're doing. So I'm always reacting, and I found that I can get laughs. They might have the jokes or whatever, but if I can react to what they say, there's a laugh there. So listening.
In a way, it's almost a way of life, isn't it? It's actually be a pretty good maxim for the way you treat people. Unfortunately, we've run out